We've got headlines from state, local, and national, some of which you'll love, and some of which will make you cry. I don't know which. I'm trying to figure out what the best thing is to do on this live cast until people start coming on. So I'm thinking about singing maybe today. So here's one that I sing to my little girls before I put them to bed. You ready? Here we go. England swings like a pendulum do, Bobby's on bicycles two by two. Westminster Abbey, the Tower of Big Ben, the rosy red cheeks of the little children. What does that have to do with news? Nothing. But I think you're supposed to do something like this until people come on, so that's what I'm doing. Welcome again. It's Brandon Lewis with the Tennessee Conservative News Break. And if you don't know who we are, the Tennessee Conservative brings conservative news to people in Tennessee. We try to make it very plain and obvious. And if you go to TennesseeConservativeNews.com, you can subscribe to our email newsletter. And we also send a text message summary. And we try to keep you informed about what's happening in your state. We try to fight back against the leftist media in Tennessee, which is everywhere. As you read the headlines, as you watch the news, you know that the media does not care for your conservative opinions or views or candidates. And so we are small and mighty, but we hope that you will share our news source with other conservatives you know so that we can grow. And if you go to TennesseeConservativeNews.com/support, and if you give any amount, even something modest and meager and tiny, we will send you 2 proud Tennessee conservative bumper stickers that you can put on your car and tell folks where you stand, and hopefully direct a few folks to our publication so we can keep people informed. People like you support our publication. It's how we do what we do. It keeps our reporters writing, and it keeps the lights on, at least for another couple of days. So let's get right into it. State News, article number 1, something you need to know. Tennessee bill could allow teachers to permanently remove disruptive students from classroom. I bet my teachers wish this had been around when I was in school. I'll tell you what, the bill is called the Teacher Discipline Act, and it establishes a process for teachers to request the removal of a student from the teacher's classroom if the student's behavior violates the LEA's or the school's student discipline policy. Who reads that thing? Not a kid I know. Or code of conduct and repeatedly or substantially disrupts class. The removal would come after a 6-step process that would take 45 years probably, and which would include parent-teacher meetings and interventions with specialists. The interventions would help to establish any learning disabilities or behavioral issues that may not have been noticed before. We had these when I was in school in Grassy Junior High, and it was called a paddle. It was the only thing that got my attention, and it lasted about a week. So maybe that's what they're talking about here. Probably not. But once a student is pulled from a classroom, they would be given a different learning environment, and that could mean moving them to a different classroom or opting for virtual education or non-education, as we've discovered in the case of virtual learning in the state of Tennessee. Now, some of this I'm ad-libbing here. If you go to TennesseeConservativeNews.com, you'll get the real story and all of these in greater detail. And that could mean giving them other options that school leadership feels is appropriate. The act was passed by the House on Monday and is now headed to the Senate. And if the Senate votes to pass the bill, it will then go to Governor Bill Lee to be signed. Next article. Senate approves constitutional amendment to change how the Tennessee Attorney General is selected. Sounds interesting. Senate Joint Resolution 1 calls for both chambers of the General Assembly to confirm the Tennessee Supreme Court's nomination for Attorney General rather than allowing the High Court to appoint the Attorney General through a secret vote of justices. That sounds pretty dangerous, a secret vote of justices. I'm already for this bill. Tennessee is currently the only state where the Attorney General is appointed by the Supreme Court. The resolution passed the Senate on Monday, 25-7, and now goes to the House for consideration a second time. Story number 2. Historical National Commission votes to move Nathan Bedford Forrest out of the state capitol. Some found the bust to be controversial because of Forrest's history as a Confederate general, plantation and slave owner, and founding member of the KKK. The bust has been on display at the Capitol for over 40 years. Maybe somebody just now noticed it. After a nearly 6-hour virtual meeting filled with testimony from various sides, commission members made the decision to have the Forrest bust removed to the Tennessee State Museum with a vote of 25-1. The one dissenting vote came from Joanne Collin Moore, a commission member from Shelby County, who represents West Tennessee. And along with the Forrest bust, the removal will include a bust of U.S. Admiral David Farragut of U.S. Navy Admiral Albert Gleaves. All three busts can currently be found in the second floor of the state capitol building. All right, if you want more on any of these stories, again, go to TennesseeConservativeNews.com. You'll get them in full. These are just the abbreviations. So Tennessee State Constitution transferred to a new home. Well, that's interesting. I thought they'd forgot about the Tennessee State Constitution. I mean, Governor Lee hasn't used this thing for at least 18 months. Somebody probably went looking for the state constitution and thought, oh, what does that thing say? I can't remember. Are they supposed to be represented by representatives? Or can their liberties be taken away in the middle of a pandemic? Let's dust that puppy off and maybe put it somewhere in a new home. I'm wondering if they're going to put it in a garbage can. Let's see. Tennessee's founding documents were transported to the new Tennessee State Library for Archives, TSLA, with much fanfare and a parade in Nashville last week. I bet they were afraid when this thing came out. Tennessee's three constitutions, first written in 1796 and revised in 1834 and 1870, are the highest valued and most historically significant items in TSLA's collection. And Tennessee's constitutions will be on display for a limited time in its new home opening April 13th, and replicas of the documents will be featured in a permanent display, digital copies along with full transcripts available at Tennessee Virtual Archive. So, national, and this one's a doozy. The Equality Act erodes religious liberty and is dangerous to women and children, and the bill claims to grant national civil protections for the LGBTQ ABCD LMNOP QRST 14-74 lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer individuals by amending the 1964 Civil Rights Act. It replaces the word sex with sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, and the rest. But it does far more, is what opponents argue, which would include requiring taxpayer-funded abortions and forcing hospitals, healthcare providers, and pharmacists to provide abortions, abortion-inducing drugs, devices, hormone blockers, opposite hormone treatment, and surgeries. And it goes on to basically force religious organizations to accept or support these things, or perhaps have their nonprofit funding status removed. And I tell you what, one of the greatest travesties I think that ever happened to churches and nonprofits was the development of nonprofit status, because it can take people's rights away. The government is then in control of something very important to your organization. And that is one reason that the Tennessee Conservative News is not a nonprofit, because of garbage like this that you would have to adhere to at some point. Matt Staver, founder and CEO of the Religious Freedom Legal Aid organization, Liberty Counsel, argues this bill is not about equality. If it was, the bill would not include houses of worship and eliminate religious freedoms as a claim or defense. The bill is a massive expansion of the federal government into every corner of our lives. So, next national article. Texas will do what feds under Biden won't do to secure the southern border. And this kind of drives me nuts, right? Here we are in the middle of massive unemployment. And the Biden administration thinks, you know what would be a really good idea? You know what would be a really good idea, since we have massively high unemployment? Let's open the southern borders so that really low skilled, cheap labor can come in illegally and take away jobs from hardworking Americans, minorities, teenagers, when they really need the work the most. This is a great thing that the Biden administration is doing, apparently, in their view. Over a period of 2 months, a surge at the border occurred after President Joe Biden signed several executive orders, dismantling the Trump administration border security policies and treaties and agreements with Mexico and other countries. Compared to the same time period last year, the number of encounters at the southern border has increased by nearly 80%. Well, at least some numbers going up under Joe Biden, that and taxes and fuel prices. That's great. And Border Patrol says officers have apprehended 108 illegal immigrants so far this year, including more than 800 violent criminals, including 78 sex offenders, many gang members, individuals who have been previously deported. It's funny. The administration and the government in general is perfectly fine with keeping people in their homes during the pandemic. of really cracking down on your individual rights and really cracking down on your liberties. But hey, if you want to wander in here illegally from some other country and take a lot of jobs or maybe get on some kind of social assistance that taxpayers will have to pay for and wander around aimlessly without having been screened or vaccinated or anything, that'd be great. That'd be great. Now, we're all for that. But the rest of you citizens, your freedoms need to be tamped down. You need to stay at home. You definitely don't need to be hanging out with friends and family or moving about freely. But you people there at the border, come on in. We got tons of room for you. Governor Greg Abbott said the Biden administration has created a crisis at our southern border through open border policies that give the green light to dangerous cartels and other criminal activity. Border security is the federal government's responsibility. It really is. But the state of Texas will not allow the administration's failures to endanger the lives of innocent Texans. Instead, Texas is stepping up to fill the gaps left open by the federal government to secure the border, apprehend dangerous criminals, and keep Texans safe. As well they should. Hear, hear for Texas. What is it? Sam Houston said when he left Congress, all of you can go to hell. As for me, I will go to Texas. Chattanooga-Based Foundation announces Automotive project to benefit families dealing with pediatric cancer. This is a local story. The Austin Hatcher Foundation has announced their next automotive project, the Kikai Cobra. Now you got me. Kai Factory 5 MK4 Roadster. This is apparently a very expensive car. The Roadster will be a replica of the legendary 1965 Shelby 427 Roadster. All proceeds from the sale of the finished project will go to help families dealing with the effects of pediatric cancer. So that is pretty cool. So those are your headlines, such as they are for March 10th. So if you will, go to TennesseeConservativeNews.com and you can read these in detail without my terrible commentary. And if you're like me and you just want to listen to someone read you the news or watch someone read you the news, I hope that was helpful to let you know a little bit about what's going on in Tennessee and the nation. If you do, go to TennesseeConservativeNews.com and click the support button. You can get 2 Proud Tennessee Conservative bumper stickers for any donation, because without you, there will not be anyone else to cover the news from a conservative perspective in Tennessee. It is us and the Tennessee Star exclusively. So if you think there should be conservative news outlets, then I would like to encourage you to please give us any time of help that you can, and do share our content with your friends, family, neighbors that appreciate our country and want to keep our state heading in the right direction. I'm Brandon Lewis. Sorry this thing happened tonight instead of during lunch when it typically should. I've got another business to run. This is something I do out of passion. Like a lot of small business owners who get involved in politics, there's not a lot of ROI in it, but sometimes it's what you need to do. And I believe that this is something that is sorely needed. And if you agree, go to TennesseeConservativeNews.com, click that support button, and help us out. I'll talk to you tomorrow. This is Brandon Lewis with the Tennessee Conservative News, signing off.